Hey everybody, welcome to your first pre-lecture assignment for Intro to Computer Graphics, GDS 1709. In this quick little lectures, takes about maybe 10 minutes, I'm just going to show you layering in Photoshop, and I have a very tiny little assignment that I'm asking you to do. It should take you maybe half an hour to do, and that's about it. Let's get right to Photoshop. If you're not familiar with it, we use Windows machines, and in the Start menu down in the bottom left corner, you can click it and type in the word Photoshop. If you have a Macintosh, you should be able to see the application at the bottom in your applications menu. Let's see. Right now, I'm just looking at the default area. You can see some of the projects I've worked on. I'm going to hit Create New, and then I'm going to use the default Photoshop size. If it's not coming up, you can go under Photo, and it's the same thing, default Photoshop size. And I'm going to leave everything the same. I'm just going to make sure that it's on Landscape, which is the person right here, orientation. It's the one on the right, and I'm going to hit Create. And then this will launch, and we'll basically have the analogy of a blank page. So as I mentioned earlier, this is really just about learning layers, and this should be the default layout for everybody. You might have your color palette be black and white, which is totally fine. I'm going to show you how to change the colors in a little bit. Just to give you a quick layout, tools are in this bar on the left. Specific parameters for the tools are across the top. You may or may not have the rulers on. I can turn mine off with Control R, just so we're not confused with more information on the screen. And then over here on the right, you have another flyout menu, and we're interested in the layers menu, so you want to make sure that that's selected. If for some reason layers is not showing up, you can go under Windows and then go down to layers or hit F7, and it should pop right back up. Okay, so over here on the right, as I mentioned, this is layers, and that's what today is all about. We're going to learn some layers, a little bit with the paintbrush, but and the move tool, but aside from that, nothing really in there. You can see we have a background. Basically, this really is the analogy of a sheet of paper, and when I apply paint to it, I'm going to paint directly on white. And for most of what we do in this class, we're not going to ever do that. What we want to do is paint on top of things. If you think about old cell animation, old Bugs Bunny animation, they used to paint on clear acetate or clear pieces of plastic. And then that way you can have Bugs Bunny move on top of the background. So let's first make one of those clear pieces of acetate. There's several ways to do this. You can go up to the menus here at the top, and you can do Layer, New, Layer, and let go, and that'll happen. You can also come down here, and there should be a little box with a plus sign. If you're using 2019, I think this icon's a little different, but it's always going to be the icon directly to the left of the trash can in this little area. And you'll notice anytime I just kind of hover over something, a little menu will pop up saying Create New Layer. So I'm going to let that happen, and you'll see the layer pops up, layer 1. And since this is above background in the layers menu over here, that means it's above when we're looking at graphics. So let's call this layer first thing. We're going to call it Bugs, because as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk a little bit about Bugs Bunny, and you do not need to be Picasso to do this. You don't need to be any amazingly awesome artist. We primarily do photo manipulation. So I'm going to draw the quickest, easiest Bugs Bunny ever. You'll see that I clicked here on the left larger square. It's set foreground color. And when I did that, I got this huge color option. And I'm just going to pick a gray. I'm just clicking, holding, going up, picking a nice gray for it. And then I hit OK. The exact color does not matter. You don't need to match any of the things that I had, any of the values. And you'll see that my cursor now looks like a paintbrush, and it's a certain size. I can use left bracket to go smaller, right bracket to go bigger. And with that paintbrush, I'm actually on eraser. I'm going to pop over to paintbrush here. paintbrushes here on the left. And see, I'm gonna go a little bit bigger here. Yes, see a bigger, smaller. The other parameter I want to show you is up here. You'll see that it looks very fuzzy around the outside, and that's because it's a soft edge brush. Again, these are more specific parameters to the tools. So paintbrush is selected, and up here you see it's got a soft edge. So I'm going to click the down arrow next to it, and I really just want to pump that hardness up. I'm going to slide that right over here. And then I can click off pretty much anywhere, and now I have a hard edge brush, and you can see in that little icon it's got a very crisp edge to it. And that's all I need for Bugs Bunny. So basically I'm gonna do the fastest Bugs Bunny ever. There is his head, and I'm gonna click and hold and drag to make his elongated body. There you go, perfect. And then he needs some legs, so I'm gonna just make this a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna go down, and there's one leg, and I'm gonna go down and make another leg. Look at that. Bugs Bunny is coming into fruition here, and then he needs some ears, so I'm gonna just go up here. This looks a lot less like Bugs Bunny and a lot more like an ant person, but that's okay. You'll get the picture. Here we go. He's floating around. So you'll see that Bugs literally is on the Bugs menu. If I click the little eyeball, he goes away, but that just means he's hidden. And then up here, the little crosshair with the arrows on the edges is the move tool, and I can move him wherever I want on the screen. So I want you to create a Bugs Bunny, and you can be as elaborate as you want. I made mine super simplistic. You can do things like add a little, I don't know, fuzzy cotton tail on the back end, a little bit lighter. Let's see, I'm gonna pop over here to his tail, make that a little bit bigger. And we're just gonna, boop, there you go, there's his little fuzzy tail. You know, I'll make his ears a little bit more appropriate instead of them looking like antennae. And I can even do kind of a two-tone type color to his ears. There we go, and I'll just make that a little bit smaller. You know, there you go. That looks a little bit more rabbit-like. Close enough. Doesn't have to be pretty. Essentially, you know, whatever I do on this layer is what happens. And you can tell I'm on that layer because it's highlighted. It's a little bit more lighter in color compared to the background. If I click on the background, that highlights. So we have our Bugs Bunny. And the next thing we do is, you know, Elmer Fudd is always chasing Bugs Bunny. And so Bugs Bunny likes to hide when he doesn't have to, you know, stick it to Elmer Fudd. And he's going to hide behind a rock. So I'm going to grab a new paintbrush, and I'm going to grab kind of a darker color rock. Here we go, something like that. Again, color doesn't really matter. And then if I were to draw right now, it would still be on the Bugs layer, which is not what I want to do. I want to make my own layer down here, and I'm going to call this rock. And now if I take my paintbrush on the rock layer, it's selected. I'm just going to make a really big splotch. Here's a boulder that Bugs Bunny can kind of hide behind. Here we go, good enough. Again, this does not have to be anything crazy beautiful. So I have my rock, and it's on a rock layer, and I have Bugs Bunny, and it's on the Bugs layer. And so let's see, if Bugs Bunny sees Elmer Fudd, he is going to, and I'm using the move tool, he's going to jump behind the rock. And indeed, he's behind the rock. You can see the ears sticking up a little bit, and that's literally the important part here, is that we can layer these. Bugs didn't disappear, he just went behind the rock. And I can put the rock on top of him, I can move it off, Bugs again behind the rock. Okay? Now you can switch that order if you come over here to the layers menu over on the right. You can click and hold, and you'll see it doesn't look like anything's happening, but then if you nudge your cursor a little bit, it looks like your finger cursor turned into like a grab, and you can grab the layer and physically put it above the other layer. If he hides behind the rock, he's actually still in front. Okay? So this idea of layers and having multiple layers, one for each object that you create, is incredibly important in this class. If you can't separate these out, you're going to have a tremendous amount of trouble and your grades are going to suffer. So you want to make sure that for every object that you make that is a complete object, you're going to want to have it be on its own layer. And sometimes you even want to have those objects broken up into sublayers and go from there. So this is essentially the premise of the first little mini assignment. If you can do this, you're going to get a big old check mark. This lets me know that you can know how to use the paintbrush tool, you know how to use the move tool, you figured out how to get Bugs Bunny to hide behind the rock. And so we'll actually do that. We're going to put the rock back in front of Bugs Bunny. There you go. And so what I would encourage you then do is add a little bit more if you can. Very simply add a little bit more. So for instance, I'll do it really quick here. Let's add some grass. And that's going to be a background layer. I would not paint on the background layer that's here. I would make a new layer, put it behind everything as I just dragged it. You can get away with just calling it BG background. That's kind of one of the things that we use in the department to just mean background. And look, I'm making grass. Really, really simple here, right? And then I'm gonna make another one and I'm gonna call it sky. Guess what color that is? I'm gonna go for the classic blue. The beautiful thing about this is that we can be messy. Like, see how we're going on top of the grass? Totally fine. I'm actually going to do the entire bit because with layers, I can put the grass in front of the sky. Does that make sense? And the reason why that's important is what if I wanted the grass to be lower? You know, what if I wanted it to come down here? I then could bring the rock down and then I could bring bugs out and I wouldn't have to repaint the sky again. And then of course you can do clouds. What color is that going to be? That's going to be a white. Just click in here, over here, go to the white. And again, just kind of big puffy clouds. And in fact, at this point, I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to go back to using a kind of a fuzzy brush just to kind of get that aspect going on the background. There you go. So yeah, if you could do something like this, you could put trees in, you could do pretty much whatever you wanted, but this is honestly the quality that I'm looking for. I just need to know you know the concept, and that would work for just about everything I need for this assignment. Okay, so one thing you're going to want to do is make sure you can save this in such a way that I can see all these wonderful layers that you've made. So we're going to come in here and we're going to do File, Save. And I got just a quick little folder that I can throw it in here. And you'll see that Save As type down here that popped up. You want to make sure it says PSD. That stands for Photoshop Document. Okay. You want to make sure Layers has a check mark next to it, which is there by default. And you want to name it something. And the way we do this is we use what's called a naming convention. So all of your assignments will have this. It's your last name. So mine is Gosselin, _ what the project is. I'm going to call it Pre-1, and then bugs, just so I know what it is, and then _ and then the date that you worked on it. So for me, it's August 26th, and I'm going to do 8-26-20. You're going to only be able to use dashes because computers don't like slashes and things like that. And that's it. So we're going to save that, and then that file, you can just continue through here. that file is what you will upload to me in your Google Drive folder, which will be done in another video. I think that's it. Thank you. Take care, everyone.